Hi everyone, welcome to our first live Q&A introducing the Form 1 Plus. My name is Jennifer Milne, and this is going to be a little different to some of the other online events. Primarily, this is an opportunity for you guys to ask us any question you have. We have a team of wonderful Formlabs people to answer. So first, we'll just introduce everyone. In particular, we're excited to be joined by Ian Ferguson. Ian can introduce himself.
Hello there. My name is Ian Ferguson. I'm a lead mechanical engineer at Formlabs, and I spend a lot of time working on and developing the Form 1 Plus.
And I'm Jennifer Milne. I'm a design engineer, and I was very involved in the Form 1 Plus launch, making sure everything happened on time. And we're joined by Jory Block.
My name is Jory, and I run our customer support team.
So yeah, so we've asked people before if you'd like to have an Ask an Engineer session. This really is it. You know, if you're an engineer and you have more technical questions, feel free to throw them at us, and we'll try and go into some more detail. So the session is going to run 45 minutes. You can ask questions using the Q&A app if you have Google+, or alternatively post questions on the YouTube channel if you're watching it there, and Jory will keep an eye on those, and we'll throw them in. But yeah, please fire away. We have a few slides to just go through what the Form 1 Plus update encompassed. And I will act as moderator, so I'll just ask some questions to Ian if you guys are running out of ideas. So here's this. So yeah, this is the team today. So the Form 1 Plus really was a big upgrade to our initial product, the Form 1. Largely, you know, what we tried to convey in the video is that a lot of what's gone into it is overhauling the internal components. So particularly, there's a new and improved laser in there, new galvanometer control system, and all these things combined lead to faster printing, better resolution, and better quality prints, and overall reliability improved as well. And also in the video, we featured actually a few of our real users, because what we wanted to try and communicate is that really all the things we learned since we shipped the Form 1, from talking to users, from seeing the things you guys print, we tried to like distill down and use that knowledge into the new product. So alongside the new machine, the Form 1 Plus launches with a 1-year warranty. So this is just showing that we really stand behind the reliability of this machine, and not forgetting our current customers. If you do have a Form 1, we're offering a path to upgrade. So that's been hugely popular. So in the US, it's $749 or 599 euros. And what that means is if you sign up for this at a time of your convenience, you can ship the printer back to us, and we will upgrade the machine to Form 1 Plus performance with internal components. And you will also be eligible for that 1-year warranty. So that's pretty nice. Another big part of the launch was EU distribution. So we're now working with a partner in Europe, Express Group. And for our European customers, this means you'll see faster and cheaper shipping, and faster and more effective servicing within Europe. So this was inherently tied to us offering that 1-year warranty. And what I just want to stress is this is kind of just the start of Formlabs expansion. We are looking at other international service areas, and we're really trying to grow our network as we grow as a company. And finally, while a lot of the, you know, Ian's a mechanical engineer, so we can do a lot of questions around the printer itself. You know, the Form 1 Plus is part of this ecosystem, so if you do have questions about the finishing kit, preform, or any of our resins, we're happy to answer any of that. So, let's see. So now is question time, so please keep asking. So an easy question to start with from Peter, asking, where is Formlabs? So who wants to take that?
It's not the most technical question, but we're based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Technically, actually, Somerville, just on the border. It's actually pretty close to MIT, where the company founders were from, about a mile from their campus. So it's a great place, access to a lot of exciting technology and excited people for 3D printing and other innovative startups.
And if that sounds exciting, Formlabs is always hiring, so you too could be in Somerville, Massachusetts. So yeah, check out formlabs.com/jobs. All right, I have a few questions for Ian. So, what were some manufacturing challenges that you experienced in the development of the Form Plus?
So the Form Plus was developed largely as a result of challenges we faced with the Form 1 for some of our longest backers. As you know, when we launched Kickstarter and fulfilling all of our Kickstarter orders, we had some delays. And so the Form Plus answered both performance, reliability, and manufacturing challenges. One example of a manufacturing challenge that we've overcome is actually the Resin Tank. It seems like a very simple component, and it's designed to be replaceable, but it's actually a very precise component. It has an extremely precise layer of silicone in it, and we had a lot of and it has to be optically clear, and so it's actually a relatively challenging piece to make reliably, consistently, and inexpensively. And so one thing we did in the Form Plus launch is we moved that from a process of fluid acrylic pieces to an injection molded tank, and this let us not only make it much more consistent and reliable, it also let us integrate some new great features, like being able to store your resin outside the printer, adding a cover, and just generally making it more reliable and a better product overall for our customers.
Cool. All right, so this is a kind of multi-part question from Brian. So first, to Ian, as much as we can talk about this, can you talk a little about some of the problems that we saw earlier with components for the Form Plus, how the new components address that, and then probably to Jory, what can people expect in terms of improvement to the service schedule that, this is Brian, who's I'm sure you've worked with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
Hi, Brian.
I mean, to be honest, I mean, there were a couple of different common problems that people have had with the Form 1 over the past year. They varied a lot. Some people had problematic lasers, for example. Lasers are it's a high-tech component, and there's a lot of different pieces in order to ensure that they're reliable and long life. And so some of our customers saw some issues with, like, at least, for example, the laser diode in the laser modules not having the lifetime or the performance that we expected for the lifetime. And so, as you'll see in the Form Plus, we've completely redone the laser, and the lasers we've been shipping in the Form 1, we fixed the problem actually many months before we actually shipped the Form 1 Plus, and improved a lot of the elements of the laser. But we've rolled them all up, and what we now have in the Form 1 Plus not only is more reliable, but also higher performance and more powerful lasers, so we can actually print faster. It's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. And as far as the service schedule, so as some of you know, when you had issues with your printers, getting you a new printer or solving your particular problems had been taking longer than you would like it to, and of course longer than we would like it to. And that's a byproduct of the Form 1 being so popular and having so many people writing in and having so many requests to handle and manage. So one of the big pushes here at Formlabs right now is actually hiring. So one way we're going to improve the service schedule is we're going to hire more people. We're going to get more people so that we can handle all of our customers, have a reasonable response time for requests and turnarounds, and essentially give you guys better service. So it's definitely something that's a priority here and something that we will be tackling.
Yeah, and I think better servicing is part of our expansion into Europe as well. So
yep.
As we grow our presence there, I'm sure we'll start to be more responsive to European hours and things like that. But that's
absolutely.
kind of a little down the line, yeah. So yeah. The European thing is new, but it's definitely the way things are going.
Yep.
All right, so good question. I just need to find it. Question from Anton Marini. So one to Joy, perhaps. Basically asking, do we know kind of how long the Form 1 Plus upgrade program is going to be available? So he'd love to kind of do it, but might need to wait this year.
Yeah, so as of right now, we have no plans of expiring the Form 1 Plus upgrade plan for Form 1 users. So if you're scraping together funds, or if you're waiting to...
Someone says speak up.
Oh, speak up. not sure whether you want to do it yet or you want to see how your Form 1 performs, now that you have it in your hands, feel free to, to do that. We're going to be offering it indefinitely at this point. So there's no danger of that expiring. And even if the program were to end, we would of course accommodate anybody who would want to bring their printer from the print.
All right, so another question for Ian from Titian Palazzi. Will you focus in further development on improving the Form 1 Plus, or do we plan to expand our applications for different desktop manufacturing use cases?
That's of course a very exciting question. Essentially, what are we working on next? So obviously as a company, we're not going to sit still and rest on our laurels. We're working all the time on improvements to the Form 1 Plus. There's a lot of things we can improve through software, and I think many of our customers saw us in the Form 1 through preform updates and firmware updates to the printer. We've actually dramatically improved its performance and reliability over the past year, and I think the experience that a Form 1 user gets today compared to a year ago is huge. And so we're going to continue to do the exact same thing for the Form 1 Plus. But I can't really tell you about all of this, secret things we're working on, but you can be rest assured that Formlabs will continue to produce exciting new products in the future.
Awesome. All right, so how about the new black resin? Question from Brian Anderson. Are there any technical differences in terms of the print quality?
Yeah, so the black resin is pretty exciting. So it's pretty exciting working here at Formlabs because we actually work on all the different elements of the printer. So developing our own resins is a great part of that, and it's great because we can actually tackle changes everywhere. And so the black resin actually has a couple of technical improvements that we've been working on over the past year, and some of these are more subtle and more from a manufacturing and consistency standpoint. But one of them is actually that it actually has slightly higher detail. So we've been able to improve the detail of how small details come out. Better surface finish and all those related elements should work better on the black resin. We've done this by altering the chemical composition slightly from our previous resins. And it's a long road, and it's a long development process for every resin. But I think our customers will be really happy with black resin. I think we're all very excited here. All of the sample prints we've been doing have been really fantastic. And I think you'll be very pleased with the results.
So, question from Barbara Budova: is it possible to refill the resin tank with more resin while it's printing? So that's that one. That's an easy question. Yeah, so absolutely you can fill the resin tank during printing. There's some features in Preform now which kind of prompt you in advance. If you're printing a particularly large part, it will, it knows the volume of resin in the resin tank, and it will let you know that you probably need to refill it. So the way you do that during printing is you simply push the button once to pause the print. So it will finish doing the layer that it's doing, and it will display on the screen what's happening. And then when it's ready, you can just open the cover and pour in more resin to top it up over time. Yeah. Do we have the auto features?
Yeah, you can actually do this immediately. If it's just a little bit more resin than you need, you can do it immediately after the build platform has descended into the resin tank. And it's gone past that initial sort of wave of resin movement. Or you can wait until the build platform has actually completely exited the resin, which is a good time to do it because the resin tank can actually hold quite a bit more resin than the build platform. It's not in it.
Yeah, and I think recently we were having were previously some issues with the estimate being off for the amount of resin that the printer would estimate it would take for the printer to actually run out, and we just had a recent software push that is going to be addressing that to make that more accurate.
So make sure you're using Elysis Preform. And it's another question from CBK88 asking for more detail about the resin in general. How strong is the material after it's printed? Is it safe for children in terms of toxicity? So I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. The resins that we do offer were designed to have properties similar to ABS. yeah, the technical specifications are available on our website, and Ian's going to look it up now so he can tell you just how strong it is. But I think the strength is fairly comparable across our resins, although there are specific data sheets. All right,
yep.
Bear with me.
Yeah, so if you go to our website on the materials page, we actually have a data sheet that gives you data on clear, and you can use the same data pretty close for the other materials. They definitely will vary a little bit, but I think the general measurements are pretty close. So yeah, as Jenny said, it's pretty close to ABS in yield and tensile strength. It definitely doesn't have the exact same impact strength and wear resistance as ABS, but it's I think it'll be, I hear a lot of customers always suggesting that because it's a stereolithography printer that it has very brittle prints, and really I think that's misrepresenting the reality. It's actually, the parts are really quite sturdy. If anything, the biggest reason people, I think, get the impression these days that it's not as sturdy is that people print really fine, really precise details, and just by the nature of them being very small, there's really no way to make a 0.3 millimeter pull.
Yeah, I think early SLA resins were really quite brittle, but yeah, our materials have come a long way since then. Oh, and then in terms of toxicity for children, you should be careful of our resins in liquid form. So when you do buy a printer, we ship with disposable gloves, and this is a good practice that you should continue to buy disposable gloves when working with our resins. It's kind of, there's a full material safety data sheet on our website. I would say it's like mildly toxic, similar to household chemicals, or if you work with like photochemicals in a darkroom. So when working with children, they need to be of an age where they can be responsible around these materials or supervised in some way. And then once it's cured, it's much safer to handle, but it's not a food safe material. So handle with care, but it's a tool, and if your children are responsibly working with model making materials like epoxies or other glues, then they should be responsible enough to work with this resin. Okay, feel free to, if you see a question you want to take. Okay, one for Jory. How about shipping to Japan?
I was just looking at that one. So we are not currently shipping to Japan. You can go to our website. It has all the information, all the places that we currently are shipping to. We are planning to expand out locally. Right now, we just want to get a handle on all of our customers in the US, Canada, and Europe. And then once we are able to service those customers to the standard that we think Formlabs should be at, then we will expand outwards. So, and we will be expanding to Japan, just not quite yet. So best thing I could say would be keep an eye on our blog. We will be making any sort of like big expansion announcements there.
All right, I saw a nice technical question for Ian. So on our printer so far, the actual build area seems to be a slightly odd area. Is there any reason for that size? This is a question from Blake Thompson. Are you tied to a certain dimension by the technology at the moment, or is it possible to increase the build area?
It's a really good question. Build area is something whenever I interact with customers, they're always asking, can I get a bigger build area, or why is it this size build area? And it's a really good question. We settled on this build area after a lot of debate, and there are both technical reasons and just sort of and it's the result of a lot of debate. I think the final thing that made us settle on this build area, beyond the technical limitations of how large it is when we were designing Form 1, we've been talking to some engineers at Gillette, just as like an example of a possible Form 1 user. They're like, what would you print on this? And they said basically a blister pack for a razor. And so and without any other sort of we had a bunch of different suggestions kind of like that, but we kind of settled on that as like a good appropriate size for us to make sure our build volume could contain. And so that's kind of that's how we ended up on this specific size. But technically there are a lot of challenges to making it like a lot bigger. And also we wanted to be sure that people could really have this on their desk and that it was a form factor that people could easily handle or move around and things like that.
Can you talk a little bit more about the sort of technical issues of making it larger with this technology?
Yeah, so I think the technical challenges of making it larger. Certainly, there's always a trade-off between size and print speed. If we were to make the printer 4 times the size, or twice the size in every dimension, and we printed just as fast, your prints could take up to 8 times as long. So I think that there's always going to be a balance there. We want to make sure we're getting a build size and build volume that's appropriate for our print speeds. But there's also some just sort of mechanical challenges. So there's that peel step that takes place every single layer between, to allow us to separate the part from the bottom of the resin tank. And that's a mechanical process. And like most mechanical process, it induces forces on parts. And basically, you think about if you increase the area, there's like a force goes up by the with the area as well, and you can start causing lots of strain-related damage to parts that are being printed. And so, obviously, there's always play and small changes and things like that. But if you just took a Form 1 and made it, much larger, you'd immediately run into lots of issues. And then also on the other side, just to talk about it a tiny bit more, there's the Form 1. It's a machine tool. Part of the way machine tools are precise is that they're very stiff and rigid in all axes, and that they can reliably reproduce the same operation again and again. And the larger you get, the harder it is to make the machine stiff, the harder it is to make it reliably go to the same positions. And so really, if you were to increase the size of this machine quite a bit, there would have to be a lot of new considerations taken into account to ensure that it reliably could reproduce shapes and so on. And so that's it's not just a click the plus button in SolidWorks. And so or scale the whole thing up. There's a whole lot of considerations.
Good answers. Okay, question from Pete Leduc. For those who don't yet own a Form 1 or 1 Plus, can we discuss expected machine maintenance? Is there any special calibration needs to continue to produce great print? You want to handle that? I mean, anyone can.
So I don't know if you can jump in if you'd like, but any of the all of our printers are calibrated within factory, and they're all the printers are calibrated in factory, and there is no sort of maintenance calibration that you need to do to maintain the machine. That being said, in Preform, we have provided some tools that you can use to tweak things if stuff's coming out a little bit out of tolerance. If you go to, there's fine-tuning tools in Preform, and you go to our website, there are instructions on how to operate those tools, but you can actually adjust the percentage scaling on the X and Y of a part, and you can also adjust the height of the build platform from the silicone layer in the resin tank. If you're not sure, read the article on the website and take a look at how those tools work. If you have any questions about those tools, I highly recommend you writing into support@formlabs.com before you start looking at it.
I would just stress, so I mean, the question was relating to new customers. So what we want to happen is, and should happen, is that the machine will work once shipped to you. So Joy works on our customer support. If you were having print issues, you should write to support@formlabs.com, and someone like Joy or one of our other customer support engineers would walk you through and just to let you know that there are tools that we have built into the software which can allow you to make slight adjustments if you aren't getting perfect prints.
So to answer your question, no. There is no user calibration required for the...
Yeah.
So there's another question here we'll go ahead and just take real quick. From T2K, can you explain in detail the Form 1 Plus upgrade program? Once the user purchases it, what is the process? So when you go to our website and you purchase the upgrade, you are placed into a queue. So right now we are expecting upgrades to begin shipping out in July. So if you purchase an upgrade, you are placed into the line, and then you can go ahead and keep your Form 1, continue printing on it. And when it's your turn to have the printer upgraded, we will reach out to you. We'll send you a message, and we'll figure out the shipping to get the printer back to our facility. Once your printer is returned back to our facility, we will actually send you a new machine, which will be a reconditioned Form 1, which will have all the Form 1 Plus upgraded internals in it.
And you get the 1-year warranty.
And yes, and you also get the 1-year warranty as well.
Awesome. So, question here from Titian Palazzi. How important is training or working with users to you? Have you provided trainings, and do you envision a team of Formlabs ninjas traveling across the world to provide workshops?
So that is, so we
I am a Formlabs ninja.
Yeah,
as one of these
all
ninjas.
Formlabs ninjas. So that is definitely something that we've talked about, and maybe
Something that we do. I'm going to take this.
Okay, all right.
So training and working with users is incredibly important. I have been working with users at Formlabs since before the Kickstarter, primarily to learn from their experience into product development. But we have a strong events team who are on tour all the time, usually go to one event a month. And then we have been doing partnerships and collaborations with some educational institutions nearby. So we have done workshops at MIT, workshops at the Harvard Graduate School of Design, where we've actually had like Will Walker and one of our engineers, Craig, have gone in and worked with students who are using the Form 1 over a longer period of time to review the prints they're getting, to talk about them, and help them over time, perfect their prints for the end of this class. So yeah, education is something we're expanding into. Definitely being based around events we're attending. Sometimes we'll do tag-on events. So we were in London recently, and we did a workshop at Makerversity in London, which was more educational. And yeah, I think in terms of the greater world, we do things online. So we've been trying to do more educational webinars in a slightly different format to this. So it'll be more of a presentation, and we have ones. They're all archived and available on YouTube. Tank maintenance, Jory's often been involved in common issues that people see. And I think as where Jory was starting with his answers, as we now offer the 1-year warranty and we think more about different service packages we could offer people, we are thinking more about how we can provide sort of high quality training as part of our service, but a little bit to be determined. If we are doing any events, we absolutely always advertise them, so keep an eye on the blog for other workshops. I don't think we have any coming up. Best thing to say about this? I don't know. No. All right. Thank you for that question. Anyone else grab one? I need to read this. Oh, I could take this one from Mark Meredith. On your website, it says the support is easily removable, but how easy is it exactly? Also, will it automatically print internal support material for overhangs or other such features? So, easy is obviously a subjective term, and like many things in Formlabs, it kind of depends on the part you're printing. So, say our standard rook piece or our new rook, which is now our sample part, it's a fairly solid, chunky thing. With our default supports, you really can pull it right off. If you're printing something that's very fine and delicate, you can print things on the Form 1 where the piece itself is finer than the support structure. So in that case, if you were to pull it off with your hands, it might break. But so with the finished kit, we now ship with flush cutters, these small scissors, and those are great for getting in. Say you had an overhang like this, you can kind of go in and snip underneath the part and do it step by step. And then on chunkier parts, it depends if you have a solid chunky thing or a hollow chunky thing. If you have a very light, large part, our default supports, and absolutely we have automatic support generation to make it very straightforward for you. But there are more sort of complex, you can go in and tweak it a little bit if you want. And so for big, light things, you might want to make the tip size a little bit smaller. For big, chunky things, you might want to make the tip size a little bit bigger. But you can, in general, vary those two things. You can change the tip size of the support, and that really affects how easy it is to remove. And you can affect the density of those. And then to your question about internal supports, this was a feature we added several months ago now, but Freeform does support internal supports. It's a checkbox that you can either turn on and off. So for example, we were printing a big vase recently, and that's the kind of thing where you wouldn't actually want internal supports because they'd be very difficult to remove. So sometimes there are scenarios where you want to turn this on and off. And with our new Freeform that we launched with Form 1 Plus, I think it's Freeform 1.5, we have manual supports. So now, as I say, there's like defaults, so you can just go in, generate supports, and not think about it. But if you're wanting to go in and really control where those supports are, you can now decide where you put individual supports, and you can also go in and delete supports that have been automatically generated. So that gives you basically complete control. And if you spend a long time setting up a support structure, you can save it as a form file and reuse it again and again. So that's pretty exciting. Preform really improves. We usually ship a new version every 2 weeks, and there's constantly new features in there that help you print more and more challenging things. Alrighty. So Thomas Russo says, just a comment, Jory's doing a great job on support. Just a shout out to Jory there.
Thomas.
Do you have any questions? I always talk and then I have to read.
Yeah.
Oh.
I can
repeat the question. And then,
so we have a question by William Benner. Tell us more about the new scanning system that was mentioned on your site. Looks interesting. What are the benefits of this? So we completely revamped our galvanometer system. So the galvanometers are the two steerable mirrors inside our printer that aim the laser at the print surface. And so we completely redesigned that system from the ground up. And basically, what we dramatically improved is the controls of the galvanometer system. And so this lets us move the mirrors much faster and much more precisely and much more repeatably. And so this is really vastly improving well, it enables us to print up to 100% faster, and so your prints will take maybe half the time that they would before. And then also you'll see much better surface finish on your parts. And generally, I think you'll be surprised by just how great and perfect the details really come out now on the Formlabs Plus.
all right, so we're getting, I don't have a great answer, but quite a lot of new questions. Example one from Brian about talk of different resins on the forum. He's looking for a flexible or soft material. Sort of similar question from I'm going to pronounce this poorly, but Jorge Santos, on what type of new materials are in our roadmap. Jory, I'm sure you get this question a lot. You want to give a general answer? New materials in our roadmap. What are we working on?
Yeah, so obviously we're working on a wider range of new materials. Now, I can't really say what specific materials we are working on, but with SL, with photolithography, there's a wide range of things that are definitely possible. So while I can't say specifically what specific resins we're working on, you can rest assured that we are actively testing and working on many, many different types of materials with many different properties. So coming down the line, keep an eye on the blog.
Yeah. All right, Thomas Roussel. When adding more resins during the print, how long can we do the pause to avoid failed prints because of perhaps non-sticking layers when we start the print?
So this is something we've been working on and improving, actually, in the last couple of releases of Preform. I don't have an exact number off the top of my head right now. I don't recommend you do it for more than 24 hours. I think that's you're asking for some trouble there. But basically, the longer you wait, really the biggest effect you'll see is that there will be a more noticeable line, basically, at the pause point. So if you were to pause for just 15 seconds, you might not notice much of a line at all. But if you were to pause for 4 hours, just something like that, you'll start to see a noticeable line at that bonding point.
Okay, one for Jory maybe, but you can jump in from Hugh Grobler. Fine-tuning. When setting the X and Y axis, will the object be bigger when you increase the setting? If the object is hollow, what will happen with the walls of the object? Will they be thicker and or further apart? All right, yeah, Ian.
I can answer that. So you're basically asking what exactly is the fine-tuning setting doing? It's going to scale your whole print. So if you have a wall that's a certain thickness, it will be increased in thickness by that percentage amount. So it's a full part-wide scaling operation. Yep. Yeah, I think that.
All right, question. Are you answering YouTube questions from Jeffrey Merson? I think Jory is supposed to be looking at them. I think Jory is answering them.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
We are
I'm
answering
distracted here. I'm answering.
So
if you're going to post something there,
you can also, yeah, type questions on YouTube if you don't have this Google Plus app thing. You know this one?
Yeah, who says so?
Another question from Pete Laduc. Are current resins stable in water once cured?
I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that they're stable in water. You shouldn't leave them soaking in isopropyl alcohol for extended periods of time. But in water, I think they should be good.
Oh, this is a nice question from Joshua Martin. What were some of the key things you learned from the Form 1 that inspired you to come out with the 1+?
Sure. Well, at the most basic level, we use the Form 1 all the time around the office. I mean, one of the biggest reasons we developed the Form 1 was because we wanted to develop a 3D printer that we could use for product development. And it's been a great experience using it because we actually get to be our own best customers in a lot of ways. And so a lot of the inspirations for improvements just came from our own needs. But they also came from a lot of requests from customers and working with customers. One of the great things Jory does every day is always providing feedback to the engineering team about what customers are asking for, what any problems come up, we know what they are, and works with us on fixing them and getting them rolled out to customers as soon as possible. So it's really, it's great because we get to use it ourselves, and then also our customers are amazing and doing amazing things, and so you guys are regularly inspiring us to make improvements and just make the Form 1 and Form 1+ as good a product as it can be.
Yeah. Question from Abe Zucker. Are you planning to become more involved in 3D printing in education, similar to what MakerBot is doing? So I can't say education is obviously a huge market. We do, there are a lot of Form 1s and Form 1+s in educational establishments. We certainly had we have a lot of sort of research graduate students using our machine for research. I think if there's any hesitation on our part, it's just because we want to sort of support these industries going in. So, I mean, and also the appropriate age of the students working with the Form 1. But it is an incredible tool. I think simply having a 3D printer in schools will inspire children to think differently. Like 3D design is a different ballgame entirely, and we do see students learning at a younger and younger ages. So technical colleges, yeah, definitely a lot of the more technical high schools are already purchasing these machines. I think it just depends how much of a shift it is. This is a new technology, and yeah, both at a sort of younger level and then at a university level, certainly we see 3D design now being relevant in our architecture, engineering, yeah, kind of across the board. It's really interesting. 3D animation is a huge one. People doing computer games, game design are using machines and things like that. So I think we are doing things, and we will continue to get more involved long term. Like, yeah, everything at Formlabs is expanding, so more great things. Any questions on YouTube you want to answer?
Here's a good one that probably you guys could actually jump in on. Can you share the story of an object created by the Form 1+, by the Formlabs team, now copyright, by the Formlabs team or otherwise, that pushed the limits of the printer? So I think he's asking, you guys design a lot of different things. You printed anything on the printer that sort of pushed the limits of the printer? And you were
I printed one thing recently. So for one of the Form 1+ events, we were in London, and we were lucky enough to be hosted by a studio there called Anything By, run by a guy called Yair, and we wanted to print some of his pieces for the event, and he sent me this file, and when I opened it, I was immediately like, not sure if it's going to come out, because, yeah, it was a prototype or design for a natural rubber hot water bottle. So it was basically this big, voluminous shape, and it was incredibly thin, and not only that, he designed it to be much larger, so I had to scale it down to about 0.4, and at that point it was near like millimeters, no, like 0.4 millimeters in places, I think, some of the surface. But I printed it on a Form 1 Plus, and it came out, and the issue was more how to clean it in alcohol, because it was so thin. I was worried about it warping, so I literally like printed it, and I printed it in white and black, and it was so thin that I could kind of see the light through it, which was not something I'd seen before on any of our prints. And yeah, I kind of had to really quickly rinse it in alcohol just for a few seconds and spray it down, and then post-cure it a little bit to make it sturdier. But that really impressed me. It was huge and incredibly thin and just one complete surface, so that was really nice. And it printed really quickly. That was one thing I think. We tried to print it on the Form 1, and it was, yeah, I think it went from like 20 hours to 13, and that was at 50 micron setting.
We had, when we first got the Form 1 Plus in the office to test out, we actually had a customer who wrote in, I can't remember the name of the company, so forgive me, but it was the hand squeeze thing, where you strengthen your grip and it flat springs it. And it's actually a very intricate piece, because you have the base, you have these sort of cylindrical pieces that go in, and then you have slots for springs. There's all these things that need to snap and connect, and the tolerances need to be just right for it. And we were very skeptical if we were going to be able to get like a full one actually like together and working. And we did fairly easily, and we sent it over to them. They were extremely impressed.
So it was multiple piece assembly?
It was
or
probably,
printed in one?
No, well, it was printed in several pieces. It was probably 6 or 7 different pieces. You had an individual piece for each finger thing. It's actually probably more than that. But each finger thing or each the squeeze had a separate spring tension module for each of your digits, and that was really cool.
It's a short little one we printed recently here. Some of our electrical engineers really needed a Molex connector, like a 14-pin Molex connector. You know, we had a bunch and a couple different sizes here. We didn't have that specific one, and turned out we were like, well, maybe we can just print it. And so we just printed out like a 14-pin standard 0.1 spacing Molex connector, and with the clip and everything, and just plugged it in, and it worked. And so it was like saved us a day or two in overnight shipping from DigiKey. Pretty fantastic.
All right, new question from Christopher Hanks. Will the new Resin Tanks fit in the original Form 1 printer? Absolutely, they will.
Yes.
So they are backwards compatible. You should use the new Resin Tanks with your Form 1 printer. They will be wonderful. I think we will ultimately phase out the clear ones.
Yeah,
so if you really like them, get them while you can.
The new Resin Tanks are not yet available in the store, so we're in the process of getting those into the warehouse and getting them available and ready for shipping. A couple adjustments on the boxes and things, but very, very soon. I'm thinking next month we're going to be ready.
All right. So we're actually getting close to our 45-minute cutoff, but we still have a ton of questions. We're not in a rush, so we'll keep answering them. But if you do need to leave, this will be available on YouTube, where we archive it with everything else, so don't worry if you miss any questions. But we'll hang around.
And if you've written questions in the YouTube comments, I will, after the webinar, go through and make sure that we answer all of those. So if you have a question we don't get to, go ahead and put it in the YouTube comments, and we will get to it before the end of the day.
Let's see, I answered that one. Okay. You just take one from here.
Here's one from Jeffrey Barris. I don't know if you want to take that.
And we just talked about it.
I can talk about the algorithms, the new controller, and how it's going to. Okay, I can talk about the elongation problem some bit. I don't want to get into the complete cause of the elongation problem, but it was a marriage both between the scanner and the driver itself. And I also want to comment, basically, you bring up the scanner looks the same, and the outside does look the same, but there have been a lot of subtle changes to it in order to make sure it's much more consistent and more reliable. A whole lot more tests and checks it goes through before it ever gets installed into a printer. And then also that problem was related to also how it was controlled in the driver. So it was very relatively uncommon problem, but certainly dramatic when it happened. And so, yeah, that problem should be squashed with the Form 1 Plus update and our custom driver board.
All right, I think we'll draw it to a close. Thank you, everybody. If you registered for this event, JP will follow up with an email afterwards. This is the first live Q&A and a new fun format for us, so we'd appreciate your feedback on how this has been, especially if you've attended some of our other online events. But yeah, thanks for your time. We're super excited after the Form 1 Plus launch, and we're keeping busy at Formlabs, so lots of new and exciting things in the pipeline for the future that we will talk about when they're ready. But yeah.
And we'll keep answering the YouTube comments. So if you're 25 minutes, 30 minutes from now, you think of something that you didn't put in the QA app, put in YouTube comments, and we'll get to it.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Have a lovely day.